I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Moines County Board of Supervisors, March 9th, 2021. Are there any changes to the tentative agenda?
That pen over there,
Which one?
that one to your right, that little one.
Pick one.
No, just, I want the only one that's where to go. There. That's not mine.
I don't know. Everybody, if I need a pen, everybody's scores up here on my desk.
That's my pen.
Except Carter.
Well, I didn't get everything back in the proper place after it was all,
Shame on
and it, well, it was all piled up over there, so.
I've had a fairly eventful morning already. I've already brought my phone in here and then forgot to shut it off, so my apologies.
That'd be a good idea.
Starting again, good morning, Moines County Board of Supervisors. March 9th, 2021. Are there any changes to the tentative agenda?
I have none.
We have an agenda. Meet with department heads and elected officials. Terry Johnson, Des Moines County Auditor.
Good morning, just have an agenda item for the canvass for the Danville School special election later on. And I understand the governor signed the new election laws, so we'll be learning all of those, all the changes, so that'll be
Well,
interesting.
nothing changed. They change that every couple of years or so, don't they?
Yeah, yep, well, about every 4, because the last time they did a major change was 2017, so, you know, what the heck,
At least they're on schedule.
yeah. Mhm.
They need to make a law.
That they
where-
can't change that stuff
Where
at
they
all?
have to come down and work in these election cycles with you,
Yeah,
so they know what's going on.
yeah.
'Cause they don't know what's going on.
Nope. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Chris Lee, Conservation.
Good morning. Not a lot to update on. We have agenda item, a couple of those part-time technicians that we're hiring through Park Revenue. We did start prescribed burns yesterday. It's like, I think this might be the first time I've ever burned with snow on the ground. Makes for really great fire break though, so I just let folks know, I mean, there's still ice on the lakes and then there's smoke in the air, so it's just a really weird spring. We're burning off some of the prairie areas that we have. We're focused on trying to eliminate some of the trees that are coming up in those, and so, but with this wind today, it was a lot drier. I mean, we've been complaining about wet roads, you know, here last week, and then I was surprised at how dry those fields were yesterday. Very surprised. You couldn't hardly drive a machine around them because the perimeter around it was so wet, but the vegetation itself.
How big an area can you burn at a time?
Most of our areas are fairly small. I think yesterday we probably burned maybe 4 or 5 acres.
In one burn, though, I mean, 1 4 or 5 acre or?
One was
Two.
probably, you know, half an acre, and then the other one was maybe 3.5, if I was to guess. Anyway, just some fields there, big hollows, what we were burning. We have a bunch of others on the list. It's just trying to get the conditions right to do it. So, other than that, just we're gonna be transitioning into spring mode. We did not have any campers in Big Hollow last weekend, surprisingly, but we're getting several calls a day, folks asking about when we're gonna open the campgrounds and stuff. Looks like we're coming into a cool down cycle, so that might mitigate some of that demand. But we are working real hard to try to get some rock put on some of our roads and some of our camp pads before we get a bunch of campers in there, trying to do it while the park's still open and empty. And so we're kind of scrambling to try to get that done before we have a bunch of folks show up. So we'll keep plugging away at that, do what we can. Looking forward to April 1st is generally the park opening day that we shoot for. We try to have everything done, the water turned back on in the parks, weather dependent, as best we can by April 1st. So that's what we're shooting for.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
Colin Gerst, IT.
Just keeping busy like always, but nothing really new to report.
Brian Carter, Secondary Roads.
Good morning. A few things to update you on. First of all, projects, 99 bridges coming along, moving well. Still working on the deck. That will be kind of the refrain for a while, so, but they are making headway. in a biggie and a bit earlier than I was anticipating. We had a pre-construction meeting yesterday morning, I guess I'd say, about the Flint Bottom Road project, and that contractor wants to get going. And with the weather conditions we've had, I don't have a good reason to stop them. So they're gonna close Flint Bottom. They're going to work, if you remember right, it's gonna be 2 segments on Flint Bottom, and they can only do 1 segment at a time. They gotta have traffic open on 1 segment before they can close the other segment. So they're going to work on the segment that extends from the Beaverdale Road intersection to close to North Prairie Grove Road. That's the segment, so that's the western end of Flint Bottom Road. They're gonna do that first. So Friday at some point, that will go closed. And essentially, Flint Bottom will be closed to through traffic for the rest of the year, or at least for the rest of the summer, would be a better way to put it. Probably into the fall, if I had to guess. So, we sent out a kind of a informative round of letters to local landowners and area residents, and I'm sure there's no way we hit everybody. But just to let them know where they're gonna start working and about the closure. And so, I guess law enforcement knows now, but it won't be, you know, it'll impact, for instance, the ethanol plant. The guys doing deliveries for grain, they'll have to go in and take the 4-lane, which is, they're accustomed to now because we've worked down there so much over the last couple of years, so that's a big deal. That's good to see that work get going. So that'll be a long one, but they'll get going on that. Still been out spot rocking and blading. The guys are, finally conditions are such where we're actually doing a little bit just standard blading. So that's good to get to. We're not gonna get everything touched, bladed, I guess, before this rain comes along. So invariably we'll have some new spots show up and stuff like that we'll go back to deal with when the rain gets done and we dry back out. But it looks like we're gonna settle into a cool rainy stretch right now if you look at the 10-day forecast. So doesn't look like any 70s anyway. And then we do have a bid out right now for the project we discussed on Pleasant Grove Road. So I have an agenda item relating to that also, but that project went out. I got your guys' signatures on that cover sheet. That's what I came around. Appreciate you guys working with me on that unexpectedly on a Friday. So yeah, we're a lot of stuff getting ready to start, going on already. It's gonna be another busy summer. So, and it's only March. So anyway, otherwise, you guys any questions? I do have a work session later too. So.
Give your crew a thumbs up, because the roads I've been traveling on are 100% better than what they was.
Well, thank you. I will. I'll pass that on. I think we get about half the credit, and the weather gets about half the credit. They both factor into it, and you can't control the one. So, but we have spent a lot of money on spot rock over the last week, and that helped the worst of the worst. We were never going to hit everything, and there still is work to do. I mean, I'll be the first to admit you can still go out and find potholes and stuff like that. That we're not out of the woods yet, but I think we're pretty fortunate that we got the kind of the steady warm up and got rid of the snow and everything the way we did with no rain in between. It's kind of a rarity this time of year. So.
Have you heard of a coming shortage of fly ash?
Yeah, we just received the shortage on fly ash. Actually, it's kind of been a topic the last 2 falls in the construction industry, and last fall it came up. Tends to impact concrete production is the biggest. I mean, I'm sure it has other impacts, but it tends to be the impact because fly ash is it's a substitute for cement in the overall mix of concrete. You can't use, it's not 1-to-1. So I think you can only use a maximum of 15 or 20% of fly ash. It's basically kind of a, cement's more expensive, and so it's
Isn't it harder to work with though without the fly ash?
I would actually say that with fly ash can bring some different or sometimes unexpected not unexpected, but it can change its properties a little bit, especially in cooler weather. You get into warmer weather and stuff, and most contractors, I think, would tell you that it's give or take, it just depends on the weather conditions, but fly ash didn't used to be a topic of conversation, but it became, again, it's a natural byproduct of the energy industry. And so, as long as it's graded properly and whatever else, it is a substitute and helps offset the amount of cement you need, which is.
I was just curious if that was basically my question, is that gonna affect some of the bids that are coming up?
Yes, it could impact the bids coming up, and there's an outside chance that it could impact some of our current project costs. If a contractor gets hit by something unforeseen like that, there can be subsequent conversations about, this was beyond our control, kind of an act of God type of situation. And sometimes fuel prices are similar, where all of a sudden they'll spike, not like they've done now, but significantly for whatever reason. And that's another after the fact conversation that is occasionally held. At this point, we've not been approached. So, and they're talking about a fly ash shortage, but keep in mind, they have a certain amount laid in for work, and I can't speak to what Ideal has or what anybody has, but there is a certain amount there. They're just already looking ahead, basically. So, but yeah, I saw that letter, and I guess it wasn't a complete surprise to me. I don't know exactly what's causing the shortage, but I believe a lot of fly ash is at least created by coal-fired type plants, and I'm not sure our current administration is real friendly towards that overall operation, so that could be a potential impact in the long run, and that's yet one more way that increases costs. So,
Thank you, Brian.
thank you.
Natalie, how are things at Recorder's Office?
Good morning. Things are going smooth. Nothing new to report.
Incidentally, I've gotten a couple calls with compliments to you personally on the way a couple people thought they were treated very nicely by you in the Recorder's Office.
Was it Natalie for sure?
Well, it said that, yeah. Anyway, so,
That was me that called in.
no, you called a couple times, and I heard, I could tell you tried to disguise your voice. These were not you anyway, so that's, people don't often reach out and say that somebody really treated them well, so, that's
Oh, good, nice to
a
hear.
nice compliment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff Kevin Glendon.
Good morning. I've got Brandon McClelland here with us. He's our new deputy. He started yesterday. Pretty excited to have him on board. He comes as a certified officer from West Burlington, and excited to get his training going and get him started. But just wanted to bring him over and introduce him to everybody and put a name with a face for the future.
Welcome aboard, Brandon.
Thank you, I'm excited.
Kevin, doesn't that save you money when you hire a certified peace officer instead of someone right out of SCC?
So there can be some cost savings, but we work through a lot of times in law enforcement, there's contracts, and in this specific situation, there is a contract. So we reimburse the payment for training in accordance with that contract.
Okay.
Just on a side note, Brandon's grandparents are my neighbors. So he comes from a good family.
Appreciate it.
Well, when you're over.
Yeah, they call
they're
periodically
gone.
complaining about you. Anyway, we're glad.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Welcome
Looking
to
forward
the
to it.
county.
I also wanted to let you know about a youth training academy that our office is starting. It's gonna be open up to 16 to 18-year-olds, youth in Des Moines County. If you know of any good applicants, we'd love to have them. We're taking applicants through April 1st, and it's gonna be a 10-week session on Wednesday nights.
Where can you pick these applications?
So you can pick them up at the sheriff's office, or you could call or email us, and we'd be glad to mail one or send one via email, and you can send it back in. They're also available through our school resource officers in Mediapolis and Danville, or you can just give us a call and we can get you one.
And you said that's Wednesday night at what time?
Wednesday night at, I believe it's 7 o'clock, 7 to 9 o'clock
Okay.
on Wednesday nights.
Shane,
Yes, sir.
if you're planning on going, You're a little older than 18. You act like you're 18, but you can't go.
Thanks, Jimmy. I would lie and say that hurts my feelings, but it really doesn't. But I appreciate it all.
So it's gonna be a real hands-on experience. We're gonna do traffic enforcement, vehicle stops, crime scene processing. We're really looking for people that wanna get involved in law enforcement, pick that as a future profession, and just get them involved and make them be a part of it. So
Sweet.
that's our goal. So if you know anybody, send them our way. We'd love to have them.
When will that be?
That's gonna start on, it's May 5th through July 7th.
So is that pretty similar to the BPD's Citizens Academy?
So this is more for our youth, or geared towards our youth. So the Citizens Academy, I believe, is opened up to all adults. This is gonna be the 16 to 18-year-old, the youth that are looking for law enforcement.
Okay.
It's gonna be a very, very basic training, just to kind of give them some insight into what police work is and what the sheriff's office does, and just give them some experience in that area.
Where'd this come from, Sheriff?
This has been in the plans for like the last 6 months to a year, just something that we wanted to do as a group, and we've been pushing towards, and COVID really, that knocked that down, but, so this has been kind of a plan of the works, but it also gave us time to develop it properly. We have all of our sessions set up with our instructors, and they've been able to develop the plan to make it fun, make it interactive, fill the time, and make it a neat experience. So we're excited about it.
What'd you call that?
We're gonna call it the Youth Training Academy.
This gonna have the other agencies in town involved, the police department and.
Not to, a little bit, but for like the narcotics enforcement, we'll use some of the other members of the Southeast Iowa Narcotics Task Force. We'll involve them, but for the most part, it's gonna be instructors from the sheriff's office.
Okay. You said it was 10 weeks?
10 weeks, yep.
10 weeks. Once a week in the evening, or?
Yeah, once a week, Wednesday nights, 7 to 9.
Didn't have cool stuff like that when I was 16.
Me neither.
Thank you, Sheriff. Well, as I've got you here, as you're aware, the board, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, we passed that ATV. Periodically, have you guys, has that created any problems for you, that ATV?
No,
ordinance?
I would say, any problems have been minor. There was a little bit early on of a confusion that the county ordinance didn't travel into the cities. Some people didn't have that understanding of it, of the rural or secondary roads, but a little bit of education, and it's actually gone really well. It's been very successful, no major issues at all.
Is there any problem with people on the levees with those things?
No more than what there were before,
Okay.
and it's really been minor. I think people really respect our levies, and they understand the concern of driving on them. Every now and then we have one of those issues, but they're pretty rare.
Okay.
Well, I got a call from our representative for this area, wanting to know what I, thought about it. And I told him I was satisfied with what we had. We hadn't had any problem, and they've got a House file going on right now, trying to change it where the state can regulate all this stuff. And that's what we asked for when all this came about. We wanted the state to do this. Now, after all these counties get their stuff together, the state wants to come in and take control of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Dennis called me too, so I
Yeah, he
called
called
him, I
you,
said, I just said, we've got one that works for us.
Yeah.
The state to keep their nose out of it, so, well, yeah, I'm glad that that's working well.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, thank you. Janelle Nally-Lonquist, the Moines County Treasurer.
Good morning. We've been keeping very busy.
It's March.
Yes, it is. Which brings me to my next thing. The second half property taxes are due by March 31st. So nothing new to report, but it's been busy.
You forgot something. Today's your birthday.
Oh, I didn't forget that.
Birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle.
Uh-huh.
Ken Hyman, Community Services.
Good morning. Nothing really new to report. We keep busy. We have our seal meetings tomorrow by Zoom, and so we'll do our business tomorrow too for the month. But nothing else new to report that I have at this time.
Thanks, Ken. Doug Urban, Correctional Center.
Good morning. Nothing new to report. Our population is down. We do have 72 as of this morning. We still do have 11 out of county. 6 are waiting to go to Oakdale, which those we confirmed last week are on the list, ready to go. We do not have a time frame for those. They just call us, and they could call us today and be shipped tomorrow, or we don't know. We're at the state's hands on that. So 6 are waiting to go there, so.
Once you have them tested, then they tell you
Yep.
how soon you can sell them.
Yep, we test them, send a test to Iowa City. They in turn go to Oakdale, and they just, they send the results to Oakdale. And then Oakdale, whenever they got an opening, gives us a call and says, hey, bring them 1, 2, 3, 4 tomorrow or Tuesday or whenever, so.
Are you ever thinking about sneaking a couple extra ones up?
Yeah, we tried that. We've sent chicken lips up there, everything. We've tried it all.
Hey, when you send them, they all go at one time, or do you?
No, it's however many they have on their list to send up, so. It could be 1, it could be 4.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah.
Krista, Overlord, Public Health.
Good morning. Our office continues to be very busy. Total number of vaccines given to county residents at this point is 12,100, and 4,300 residents in our county have received the second dose. I really want to thank all the community volunteers, and we have volunteers that come to our clinics and 2 and 3 times a week down at the auditorium, help us out. Great River Health Systems has been amazing, and as well as emergency management, helping us get those vaccines given. We give almost 1,100 vaccines at those one-day clinics, and that wouldn't be possible without all their help. Also want to thank Colin and his IT team. They've been wonderful. They've helped us set up what's called No Wait Inside website that's on the Des Moines County webpage. People can log on to that and schedule an appointment at our office. The state has opened up vaccines to not only people that are 65 and older, plus the subcategories. They've also opened it up to people 64 and younger with certain health conditions, things such as hypertension, cancer. Colin put it on the webpage as well as it's on our Facebook page. If you click that, it will, on the link inside of there, will tell you what conditions are eligible to receive the COVID vaccines if you're under 64. And we are continuing as well. We're in the subcategory of working with manufacturing. So we've been going out to different manufacturing places and getting their vaccines done. So we're hoping in the next couple of weeks to get all of our manufacturing organizations done and then move to the next tier. So currently our 7-day rolling percentage is 2% with 14 cases. I have to say there was a day on Saturday we had 0 cases, and that was so exciting because I've not seen that in a year. So I feel like, thank you to the community, everyone who's doing all the mitigation strategies. We're starting to see where we're headed in the right direction.
Chris, when IV is given these, are them in your, you get them figures sent to you?
That all goes into the state, yes, so we actually allocate that vaccine, all the vaccine except with the ones through the pharmacy contracts, come through our public health, and we reallocate those out, and so that's actually tracked by Iowa Department of Public Health.
And you are getting, from what I heard this morning, you're getting Johnson & Johnson now?
We have not received Johnson & Johnson. I believe Hy-Vee got a small allocation directly through the pharmacy contract of Johnson & Johnson. The idea behind the Johnson & Johnson is they wanted to reach out to the communities. Our percentage of second doses is almost 11%, and it'll be higher than that as we give our second doses on Thursday, which we will give another 1,100 second doses. And so they're reaching out to the counties that maybe don't have that high of a completion rate and wanting the Johnson, because it's a 1 dose, and to bring their percentage up. So I think we'll be a little while before we receive the Johnson & Johnson. We're currently getting mostly Pfizer, but we will be getting some of the Moderna as well.
Thank you.
So is the 12,100, is that total doses, or is that people with first dose?
That is people with first dose, our
Okay.
county residents with first dose.
All right, I just
Recipients.
wanted to make sure before I printed the wrong thing.
Yep. And then 4,300 is the people that have completed doses.
All right.
Thank you, Krista. Rodney, Police and Maintenance.
Good morning, we've just got, with the nice weather, we've just got a lot of stuff going on. Quite a few different projects. I did wanna mention, we had the Courthouse and Public Building Security Committee, meeting there 2 weeks ago. We kind of review that plan and make any revisions or corrections, and then kind of bring that to you, for approval if we do, but, there was no additions or corrections at this year's meeting, so, you won't be seeing that plan run through here, this year, so. I appreciate everybody on that, committee serving and, looking at that. We are looking at maybe doing, and there was talk about, doing another active shooter drill, possibly in the fall of this year, so. We'll take a look at that and see how things are going with COVID and all that, and kind of review it here later on in the summer or early fall. So, other than that, it's just business as normal. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. Maybe get a little rain, maybe get some of the sand off the streets and the driveways.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Okay.
I have two online here. First one is Jared Laster with Land Use.
Jared Lassiter, Land Use.
Good morning. It seems like we've started subdivision season for the year. As it gets warmer and starts to dry out, we're starting to get those come in at a pretty good rate here. We got a couple out for review right now, and I suspect we'll probably have 2 or 3 more within the next few weeks. We've had several here where they're just waiting on surveyors to get the work done, and they're all ready to go otherwise. So. I have a number of them to review in the coming weeks. Other than that, I don't have anything else to report.
Thank you, Jared.
Lisa Schaefer, Des Moines County Attorney.
Lisa Schaefer, Des Moines County Attorney.
We're just busy.
I suspected that. Anything else?
We have a trial going this week, we have a trial going next week, we have a trial going the week after that. We're just very, very busy.
Don't keep you out of trouble. Thanks, Lisa. Did I miss anybody? Okay. Any correspondence?
I have none.
I have none. Proceed to discussion and vote. These are the issues of which county engineer spoke. We have approval of an Iowa Department of Transportation pre-construction agreement for 2 projects on Highway 61. There's 3 projects.
Well, so A and B are what we've already had a work session about, and I'll just summarize them both briefly just to make sure, but this is just simply standard protocol. This is part of the process of the DOT continuing to work northward on their 4-lane project. So these agreements cover the segment of road that we'll take over up around the Mediapolis area. And then there's a couple of roads that have to be built and some stuff like that. So there's different kinds of work and different types of stuff in here. I think the high points are is that there's a couple relatively short gravel roads they'll build as part of their construction. We'll take over. They have to do some reconstruction work on Mediapolis Road into Mediapolis. That's part of their project, their expense. And then probably the big ticket item is eventually when we take it over, I think there's a negotiated payment of $850,000. Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of Mediapolis. $325,000. Got them mixed up. I've been dealing with both of them. So that they'll pay the county, which we don't have a lot of mileage. That's one thing to keep in mind. I think most of that mileage in this segment is in Mediapolis. It's a mile, it's in town. We're picking up a little bit of a stub piece of mileage to the south and a little piece of mileage to the north. So there's not a lot there that we're taking over this time. So And again, that's summarized in both agreements. They both have, there are a lot of boilerplate language. You guys have already seen these. But they do cover some of the payment stuff, some of the responsibilities, paving the approaches on 4 different side roads like we already are doing. So none of this is new or rocket science, and I'd recommend approval of both A and B.
Go ahead. What's the difference between the 9-inch and the 10-inch? What does that mean on a pavement?
It's just thickness of concrete. So the approaches are being done at 10-inch because it typically matches up with the thickness of the 4-lane paving that the DOT is doing. The 9-inch, I believe, I'd have to look in there, but I believe the 9-inch is probably what Mediapolis Road thickness is, but I could double it. It's just thickness of concrete, and to be honest with you, we typically do 8 inches of concrete on most of our projects, so.
Okay.
So that's what it is, it's just the thickness of the concrete.
So the first agenda item is approval of IDOT pre-construction agreement 2021-C-079 for project number NHS 6-061-265 and 3H-29 and NHSX-061-2106-3H-29 Highway 61. Neither one of you have to repeat that. I didn't like reading it. Well, I will leave you with this one thing. My mother always told me to beware of states that come bearing gifts.
This isn't a gift, this is we don't want any more mileage, but it's basically a give and take situation.
Move to approve item A, that you just read.
Terry?
I take it Shane seconded?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes.
I'll grab these originals from you later on, Terry, because I have to get the originals back to the DOT.
That road you're talking about, Bill, that would be from that,
These I can stamp. This is for the state.
I don't, yeah.
that house that's up north, past the old railroad crossing, where you went back there. They're gonna take that back to the south.
Correct, that's, yeah.
Maley?
The Maley
Yeah.
residents there, Jim Maley lives there. And so that, they won't allow that access to come out to the highway because of the proximity to the interchange, so. And that's a private driveway right at the moment.
Yeah.
But, so they're building a road over by where Alan Edmonds live essentially, north to that.
Okay, item 5B is the approval of the IDOT pre-construction agreement 2021-TJ-005 for project number TJ-061-2130 and 2M-29 Highway 61.
I move that we approve.
You don't need to say that all.
I'll second that.
Terry?
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Jim Carrey?
Yeah.
Tom Broker?
Yes.
The next item, where Mr. Carter is going to revise the 2021 5-year program.
You wanna go through the entire 5-year program?
I'm sure that was.
We got an audience now, and it's in the middle of the meeting, that's what I was gonna tell them.
I gotta take a phone call.
I just realized that Michelle said there's a shots fired.
All right, we do have a revised 2021 county 5-year program resolution. I believe this was discussed in a work session.
This was discussed in a work session. This was originally going to be a next, first fiscal year of the upcoming construction program project. We've saved enough money on a lot of our competitive bids over the last couple of years that we're able to move forward and do another, I'd call it kind of a smaller scale project, but another concrete project This is, so all we're doing really is accelerating the time frame because we're gonna go ahead and bid this for this year's construction. And to wait till July to bid something wouldn't work very well. So, this is actually out for bid. This is the one I mentioned earlier, we're out for bid for this. We plan on taking bids on April 1st. We have 3 landowners we need temporary construction easement from, they've all 3 agreed. I've got one of them all signed, the other 2 don't live in the area. So all those documents are out, they'll all come back signed, I have no reason to believe otherwise. So this is really just a formality to bring this project into the current construction program. So if the contractor were to start working before July 1st, it's in the program. So it's roughly a half-mile, give or take, of Pleasant Grove Road from the bridge to the east, which is in front of the quarry and which is one of the worst segments. In fact, we did a patch last fall just to get the thing through the winter time, the worst spot. So anyway, it's that segment of road. You guys are aware of this, and yeah, I'd recommend approval of this also.
What road is that on?
Move to approve
Pleasant
the
Grove.
revised
That's what I thought.
2021 5-year program.
My second.
Terry?
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes.
Thank you. You can do whatever you want on that too, Tom, because
I will.
we just push a button on that one. They don't even send it on to the state anymore.
Okay, we have a fireworks permit for Sperry Fireworks on July 3rd, 2021. It's been correctly filled out and approved by the auditor's office.
Move to approve.
Second.
Terry?
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes.
It doesn't say the time on there, though. When are they letting these things off?
Want to get a good seat?
Yeah, I'll make sure I'm there in time. Check it out.
I think they typically set those off about 30 minutes after sundown or something like
Yeah,
that.
9 o'clock seems to be a target time, give or
Yeah,
take.
9:30.
Yep.
Natalie,
You
you're
gotta be
close to it.
When it gets dark.
You gotta be sitting in your lazy boy and wonder who in the world's shooting. It's dark time, and then dark, and then you realize, oh,
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
it's a holiday, they're shooting off fireworks.
They're really good ones.
They are.
They go all out, that's for sure.
We have a Class B beer license for 34 raceways, and the sheriff's okay with the, has no problems with that.
I'm surprised that you're allowing those people to go out to 34 raceways and drink booze and drive around that track.
This-
Hey, that's your baby.
Beer, this is beer.
I move to approve the Class B beer license for 34 raceways.
Second.
Terry?
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes. We have a Class C liquor license for the Hy-Vee Ewing wedding on that's April 3rd, 2021.
Move to approve Class C liquor license for Hy-Vee UN wedding, 2021.
Second.
Terry?
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes. And we have a Class C liquor license for Fat Annie's Augusta Tap. And once again, the sheriff had no issues with it.
Move to approve Fat Annie's liquor license.
Second.
Terry?
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes. And we have a Class C liquor license for Myers Wedding Barn for a wedding on May 1st, 2021.
I move that we approve Class C liquor license for Myers Wedding Barn on May 1st, 2021.
Second.
Terry?
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes. And we have the canvas, the Danville School special election held last Tuesday. Did you receive any absentee votes after the?
We only had one absentee ballot, and it was delivered that day, so we don't have to worry about any other ballots coming in or anything, so.
No changes, so
No changes, we had 118 vote, this is in Des
119.
Moines County. 118 that voted at the polls and one absentee ballot for a total of 119.
Sorry.
So the yes votes were 71, the no votes were 48. And then next week, we will have the second tier canvass because now that cities and schools that, or especially schools that cross county lines, if they have more than 125 voters, that county has to conduct that election also. So Henry County, but they had a countywide election going on. So they included, of course, the Danville school. So we have, after they do their canvass, they'll send me those results. And then next week, we'll have the second tier canvass, which will include Henry County.
Okay, thank you. Need a motion to approve?
Move to approve the canvas for Danville special election on 3/3/21.
Second. Terry?
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. We have personnel actions. This is the last page you need stamped.
Yes, go ahead and just do the stamp and then everybody initial it, because that goes in our election record book.
Good thing I've got plenty of pens. Okay. Yeah, sign the first two, sign the, for signature and then initial all the pages. Okay, we have personnel actions. We have two personnel actions for the conservation. Separate them here. We have Derek Hester, part-time conservation tech. New rate, $15 an hour. And Harrison Beating, part-time conservation tech, a new rate of $15 an hour.
Move to approve both.
I second. Terry?
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. We have three for the personnel actions for the correctional center. We have Dakota Day, full-time correctional officer, unpaid leave for March 7th, 2021 of 8.25 hours. We have Cody Reynolds, full-time correctional officer, unpaid leave February 21st through February 26, 2021, total 49.5 hours. And Jacob Trumbull, kitchen assistant cook, new hire at $8.84 an hour.
I move that we accept the personnel actions for the correctional center.
Second.
Terry?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. one personnel action for the sheriff's office. Trish Osborne, part-time clerk, 6-month anniversary step increase. The previous rate was $16.50, the new rate is $17.50.
Move to approve.
Second. Terry?
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. We have reports for general assistance for February 2021. Veterans Affairs report for February 2021. Both of these reports will be on file at the auditor's office and available for public review. We have minutes for the regular meeting of March 2nd, 2021.
Move to approve minutes?
Second.
Terry?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. Any other business?
I have none.
I have none. Future agenda items,
I have none.
committee reports.
Well, I had a conservation meeting with Chris pretty well told you about that, so it was a good meeting. And then I had a fair board meeting. Fair board meeting, my first one that I got to attend. It was a good meeting. They give me a paper here that goes back to when the fair started out at the college, the joint agreement between the county and the college.
Yeah, what year was that?
1973.
It's been that long.
Been that long. And so I'll get some copies of this, Ron, give you two guys so you can read it. It's interesting.
I'll bet.
But, it's a good meeting, and I want to learn.
I had two good meetings as well. I just want to document for the record, I'm going to change my name to the other guy, Guy for short. Because both meetings, they said, well, who are you? I said, I'm replacing the last supervisor. They said, we like the other guy too. I said, well, just call me Guy for short. That means they'll start to like me better too.
I think you brought treats for him. No, we didn't. They said we like the other guy better.
You'll never believe what I told them about you.
Don't say it live, buddy.
DESCOM had a meeting and we approved the new 2080 with the stipulation that the county attorney's gonna look over it and see if one or two of the sentences need to be modified. But that was the only meeting I had. Public input. If anybody from the public would like to address the board, we have set up an email or a phone number to contact the board. Email the board at board@dmcounty.com. That's board, board@dmcounty.com. Or you may call 319-753-8203, extension 4. That's 319-753-8203, extension 4. We'll give you 2 minutes to initiate that call or that email. Anybody in attendance have any comments? Pretty quiet group.
Shane, can I ask, which meetings did you attend?
What's that?
Which meetings did you attend?
Workforce development and early childhood development.
Should we sing?
CEO, oh, that was CEO, workforce development.
Yeah.
I interrupted you.
I mean, I don't like it was the moment. Did I miss it? They're on.
I was hoping he's gonna start it up.
Not necessary.
I mean, how long does it
But
take?
Jim, they'll
Do we-
take you
do we
back.
have, does happy birthday fit in the 2-minute gap?
Yes, it's 36.
All right, let's do it. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Janelle. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't think she really liked that, but anyway.
I don't know, I think I'm getting looks, I'm not sure.
What's he across your cheeks for, you know?
And I've been married long enough, I know never to ask, how many are you?
Oh, that'll bother me, but I'm not gonna tell you anyway.
29.
There you go.
That's a number
That would have been my
guess.
guess.
29.
Yeah, that's
Nah.
true.
That's funny.
With her cake.
You know, that there,
This week.
that might make YouTube, we might get 1,000 hits on that.
I
Well,
tried to
that's
sing
only
low,
four
so
now.
nobody hear me.
Then you can make some of that sweet ad revenue.
I've thrown that out to Colony, he doesn't think our numbers are approaching that yet.
No, not quite, a little off.
You have to be in double figures anyway, don't you?
Our numbers are better than Middletown. That's all I got to say about that.
With an aye, we're adjourned.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you all, have a great day.
Yeah, that worked out great.
I think, not for you.
Taxes are going up. we have a work session with the county engineer regarding an update on the yearly rocking program.
Yes.
All right, so this is probably a bit more for Shane's benefit. If there's doubles there might be, yeah, there is. Would you turn around and hand it to Terry so she can fall asleep looking at it?
Thank you.
Colin, I didn't think about bringing you, oh, I might have an extra copy for Colin. There's
Oh,
your-
boy.
Let me sign. That's right.
Oh, don't let
The
me out.
excitement is overwhelming.
Okay, so,
Hey,
I'm not,
Brian,
yes,
for everybody's information here, if I take off about 5 minutes to 11.
We'll be done by
I've got
then.
doctor's for
We'll
you.
be done by then, trust me.
Okay, all right.
So here's the deal, this isn't anything new, this isn't anything cutting edge. I am proud of this, I will be the first to admit that. When I first came, and I've been here a long time, so, we, that's Terry nods, yeah, maybe too long. We did a lot of rocking and everything, we used to spend, what now is over $1 million, we used to spend 700,000, or, it was just different scale, different cost of rock, stuff like that, but we didn't really have a program, I'm gonna be honest with you, we didn't really have a program, and we went that way for a long time, we just kinda hauled rock where you needed it, kind of hauled rock on roads that you needed it, stuff like that. You had a worse blade guy, there's probably more rock going to that district, stuff like that. And then, I had a superintendent retire, and then I brought him back. Hey, Bob, what you need?
Just gonna sit in for a little bit here.
Okay, we're in the work session, you know that.
You're past
Yeah,
Okay.
so if you have anything, go ahead and say it in the work session.
really?
Well, I assume that's okay with them, they can't really,
It's a public
they
meeting.
can't deliberate with
We
you, but
can't-
go ahead
we-
and say it.
We can't make any decisions, but we can listen and ask you
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
Well, I do have an issue. What it was, you have a notice down in the lobby or entryway, we're buying a used vehicle, you guys require a receipt to prove for sales tax, I believe, as far as the treasurer's office.
Is that
when they
the
require-
treasurer's office you're talking about?
Yeah.
You guys put I think it was January 1st of 20, you guys had an ordinance that stated that.
That's a requirement that the state requires, and Janelle just informed us of it and told it, and she's got it posted downstairs.
I
that-
see where it's posted.
Yeah.
Janelle's the treasurer, in case you.
Yep,
Okay.
didn't know that, thank you. Any way around that, or that's pretty much the law?
This is, so you
That's
guys know, this is Bob Strawhacker, he lives
Yeah, I
off
know
Pleasant
Bob.
Grove Road, I don't know his address off the top of my head, but I wanted to.
Thank you,
mention
Brian,
it.
appreciate it.
I think that's an Iowa,
What's it, sales tax on a used vehicle?
Yes.
You're talking about?
or
That-
a sales receipt, you have to have a sales receipt or something like that.
And then they base the
it
tax on the
verify-
receipt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
verify what
Yeah.
the
Okay.
vehicle was sold.
That's not new, I had to do that the last time I got a
Yeah.
kid car, I don't remember how long it's been, but.
Don't know, I'm just sure that's something that the state said this is what we want.
Mhm.
Because the state creates sales taxes. Now, you can have a local option sales tax that you have to have an election on. It can be permanent or temporary that you have an election on. But the state imposes sales taxes.
For the 5%, yes.
Collects that money and distributes it however the hell they want, or wherever they think it's gonna go. So, that wouldn't be.
And that was just basically, they changed it that you had to have a sales receipt when you came into title or change a vehicle.
To
And
prove
it-
that amount.
Yeah, to prove what you paid for that.
That would be, and I'm positive you could ask the treasurer, but I'm sure that's a state regulation. That isn't, I've been on the board and I don't ever remember even discussing something like that. I think maybe I did hear Janelle mention it.
I think they just changed
during
it like a
the
year
budget
ago,
hearing or
January or
sometime
something like that.
That she,
That's correct.
and if,
That you have to put the number down? Because I've
You have
always
to
had
have
to do
you
that.
have to have a sales receipt. If you sell a vehicle,
To prove
like
the
if
number.
you.
yeah, I don't think you can just say I paid $500 for it anymore. You need,
Somebody
if
say,
I sold it to you, you need to say, I sold my vehicle to Bob Strawhacker for.
But you do that on a
$500.
piece of paper and just have the guy that sold it sign it though, right?
I would assume any,
I don't know
obviously,
what-
if you're gonna buy a vehicle from me, I don't have any sort of, there's no form.
They do have a form,
I've done
But
that.
they've got a form?
yes.
Okay.
and has a bin and
Janelle's
stuff.
downstairs, I mean,
But I tell you what, if,
Well, I guess my issue is, I just licensed and titled the vehicle yesterday, and I paid less than 4,000 for it. They charged me almost 10,000 on tax on it, and I had a receipt for the 4,000. Where I come in different on it is mine was a prior salvage vehicle. And what the state's doing on that, I think is really unfair.
Well, I
You
don't
mean
know
they
about
charge you
that.
on the 10,000 value?
They say the value is 10,000, being as I fixed it already. So it's kind of like they're taxing it on the labor I put in, and they don't care about what I paid for it. But then,
just to get an answer, I'm gonna call Janelle and see if she can come up here. She
That's
should be
great.
up here in about 2 minutes. Anybody got a problem with that? They aren't deciding anything. This is just.
No, Jimmy's gonna, he's already seen this. This is all for me, so.
well, and,
Well, this is the first I've heard of that.
yeah.
Other
and
than I
got
remember
the,
Janelle talking about
hey,
that.
Tom, I've got her number right here.
Yeah, if you want, you could call her and ask her if she could step
Do
up
you
here.
realize how many times you're gonna get charged tax on a vehicle?
Oh, yeah.
If you trade it in 3 times, you still gotta pay tax every time you trade that off.
But really, I believe I got charged 2.5 times.
For
What I paid.
if it's salvage title, I don't know who has the authorization to say that
I think
work
they
is
put it
done,
in the
because
Iowa
salvage
code.
title's a salvage title.
Yeah, I think they put it in the Iowa code that they go off rough trade-in value, and they don't care what you paid for it. But they asked me to sign downstairs that I actually paid the higher price. And I said, wait a minute, that'd be similar to forgery, that's signing something I didn't do, and I refused to sign that, and I still got licensed. But yeah, they asked me to sign it, I paid $99.64 for a car I bought for $39.50. And they taxed me on the $99.64, so I really wish I could go on the actual sales price. That'd save me $300 on that car alone.
Well, yeah.
I think it's an unfair thing that they're kind of picking on, maybe what you'd say the poorer part of society that buys junk vehicles, and hitting us with a lot more tax. One vehicle I had to pay 3.5 times what I paid for it.
She's coming.
And a lot of that is state.
It probably is.
Because they
It probably is.
tell them what they charge.
And this, if she can answer your question, we'll all learn something, because you might not be, this might not be the last time we hear that question.
Well, and I wish it was your local rule took precedence over the other, that, you know, yeah, we could use the receipt.
If we make a rule, it can't override state law.
I was afraid of that.
We don't have county home
You know-
rule on that.
You know, the first rule of plumber is it runs downhill.
I know it runs downhill, I'm at the bottom catching it. I do know that.
But did you have this car last year?
I just titled it. I've had it for several years and finally got it done. It takes me a while to fix them. And that's the first time I've licensed it. And, yeah, I had a truck that they charged me a little over 3 times what I paid for it. And they don't care about the receipt, and that's.
They don't, and they said downstairs they don't care if it's salvage. That's.
Well, the salvage is what causes it. That's what causes it. They make it a different rule for salvage vehicles. And I think it's in the Iowa code.
That they can charge more for them?
But it seems odd to me that
Because
they would-
insurance is even lower on salvage titles.
Well, I don't know if it is for mine, I don't think it is, but, yeah, it seems odd that they would say, take a higher price and sign that you paid that. I don't think that passes the state test in my mind.
Well, it might be worth a call to Dennis Cahoon and Tim Goodwin.
Yeah.
Because that is a state deal.
Yeah, that's
And I got no complaints with the gals downstairs, they were wonderful to deal with, and they're doing their job, I understand that.
But you should call Tim Goodwin and, you know, a few others and say, hey, you know, speak up for us, because that is wrong. That's wrong. You
That's
shouldn't
what
get taxed on a salvage title. I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
I've been doing rent cars since '83, and it just came in the last few years, and it smacks you pretty good.
Yeah.
You must have did good work, man, to take the value from 4 to 10 grand.
Well, I'm not saying I did. And the thing is, if I don't sell it, I'll never realize that value. So you're almost, it's like the state is taxing me on my labor that I haven't got, so,
They got a knack for taxing for anything they can get.
yeah. Yeah, I was hoping there was a local rule and you guys this week, well, yeah, we're done, she'll fix that. And I didn't hold my breath.
No, this board never decided that. Janelle, this gentleman has a question about, anyway, go ahead and ask Janelle.
What it is, Janelle, I just licensed a salvage vehicle yesterday. You gals are wonderful down there. but I paid $39.50 for the vehicle, had receipt. They taxed me on an amount, $99.64.75.
Okay,
And then they asked me to sign that I paid that amount.
okay.
That's where I have issue. I don't want to sign something not true. And yet, is the state making you go with that higher number?
That higher number comes from the inspection tab. When you go to get that vehicle inspected, that investigator inputs that information.
He looks it up in the book, doesn't he, book value?
No, actually, I think you need to ask the Department of Revenue
Mhm.
and the officer how they arrive at that. But I believe, don't you have to have all of your sales receipts?
I do.
That's okay.
And I give them those.
And I believe that that should be, that figure there should be derived from a combination of what you paid for it and those receipts, but that's a question for those inspectors.
My receipts were about $600 on this one, 600 or 700.
Okay,
So I'm still under 5,000, but I got charged on 99.64.75.
right, and we have to go by whatever that investigative officer at the time of inspection puts in that tab.
What do you think on the area where and they've always asked me to sign for the amount that's not true? Is that how it should be, or I mean?
That is the amount that we're required to take, and you do have to sign the application. I guess at this point, what I would suggest, since it's an Iowa Department of Revenue policy, is to maybe put in a claim for refund to the state. That goes to the Iowa Department of Revenue.
Do you have plans for that?
We sure do, we sure do. And I can't guarantee,
Yeah.
you know, what they'll do, what they'll say. But I guess my suggestion would be to contact the Iowa Department of Revenue about that policy when it comes to those salvage vehicles
Yeah.
and the use tax that's collected.
It hasn't happened to me to the last 3 or 4 years, and I haven't done it for a few years before that, but it, and I know it's in the Iowa code. And like I say, your gals are wonderful down there.
Well, thank you.
I just don't
They
agree
are.
with how it's getting implemented there.
But that is how, that's where it's derived from, and that's the, you know, the tab, the information that we're required to take, so.
Online, I read where somebody said the car dealers kind of lobbied for some of that,
Possibly.
Quell the competition a little bit. So-
Possibly.
So,
Not-
okay, well, I'll take it up with
That's
some
what
reps. and-
organizations do. That's what most of those regulations are for. It's because they help somebody and disadvantage their competitor.
So, yeah, go ahead, stop on down, and we'll get you those claim for refunds. I can't guarantee anything, it's worth a shot though,
Worth a try.
you know, and
Yeah.
also I can give you the contact information
Okay.
for the Department of Revenue concerning that issue.
It's the third one that's hit me on that's about like that, so it's extra expense we're not planning on and don't really think is fair,
Understood?
so, okay.
And Janelle, what was it? Was it a year ago in January that they started requiring the receipt?
We did here in Des Moines County, and that.
Because they
again,
were
That
going
is
to-
again being proactive, that there's administrative rule, and it may come this year. They were having some problems getting that through, but the Iowa Department of Revenue is going to make that an administrative rule that a bill of sale be required at the time of each transfer. Most counties in the state of Iowa, most county treasurers have already implemented it. And then there is a code section, don't ask me offhand what that is right now, 321 point something or another, that states we can require that, so,
I only wish for that.
yeah. It's coming. It's
Yeah.
coming, we've been assured, so. Is there anything else? that can-
No, thank you very much
Thanks
for
for your time.
Stop down.
walking up
Okay.
here. Thanks, Janelle.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janelle.
Bob, on a side note, where's Dave?
Dave passed away last summer.
He did?
Yep,
I
yep,
did not know that.
yep, passed away in August.
Sorry to hear that.
Well, thank you, but one other thing.
Oh, I was just gonna say, for the record, I agree with you. I don't feel like that's right for them to do that either. It's not like I can do anything about it, but you definitely have a right to be upset and
Well,
disappointed how this is working out.
When I sell a salvage vehicle, first of all, I've always told everybody it's salvage. Second of all, sometimes I can't paint them well enough that they can't tell anyway, they really aren't as good. And I tell people, here's what I did, here's what you're getting, here's the cost, take it or leave it, you know? But I don't feel it's right to get taxed on a higher amount than maybe my skill is showing there. And, yeah, I do sell them for less, and they're taxing me for quite a bit. Many times, yeah, I may not get that out of it. So,
Well, good luck. I hope that gets you taken care of. And I would call Tim Goodwood and Dennis Cahoon, they both live here in Burlington,
Sure.
and explain that problem to him, tell him.
Well, his representative would actually be Dave Kerr.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, where do you live?
Minneapolis area.
Oh, okay, well, Dave Kerr and Tim Goodwin.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I would give them a call.
I appreciate you guys letting me jump in. One thing, if I could mention, not to beat up Brian, but Brian's been here 15, 16 years. I kind of appreciate you guys having a local engineer that's good for the county and I think stays a while. Some of them we've had before haven't so much.
We haven't been able to get rid of him.
Thanks, Tom. I'll try and help with that.
Thank you, we appreciate that.
Well, he's a good guy. I wish they wouldn't put so big a rock on the roads up by us.
We've had that conversation.
Yeah, that stuff, and one of the neighbors said that stuff's as big as baseballs, and he's not far off. But I understand in my holes you need bigger rock, but
Yeah. it's
boy,
one of
when you
those
get a
springs.
smaller car on that big rock,
Yeah.
you know, I don't feel you're giving Brian the right tools to work with, because if you would take your road tours and a small Yugo with steel wheels and no shocks, you'd have a better feel for the road, bring a little togetherness. And,
This guy's good. I don't know who he is.
I can
He's
get you
all
one of
right.
those for the same price as what you're buying his vehicle now, I'm sure.
This guy's good.
Maybe lower.
That's what the county needs, is a Yugo with no shock.
Steel wheels.
That was good.
That'd be a good vehicle for the county engineer to drive all the time.
Great board vehicle.
I'd be glad to take his on trade and get you one of those and promote a little togetherness for you guys. You know, when you're on the tour.
Well, we'll take that under consideration.
Well, thank you. But no, the guys he's got taking care of the roads, they do a good job up there within their control. You know, you can only do so much, but no, we appreciate having somebody that's been around for. He's been in the neighborhood a couple generations, family-wise, and for the most part, it's good. You can talk to the guy.
Okay.
Thanks, Bob.
We appreciate that.
Little smaller rock would be good.
Thanks, Bob.
I agree with that too, actually. So-
Good luck. Good luck with your refund.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay, we will.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes, but, no, I appreciate you letting me step in, and thanks for your time.
Not a problem. Have a good afternoon.
Good seeing you, Bob.
First time I spoke in front of you, maybe last, you never know.
You're always welcome.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Most
care,
of you guys
Bob.
do a good job, we'll see how Shane can do.
Right on.
Yeah.
We've got our eye on him.
There you go, thank you again.
Okay.
See ya.
Okay, back to Brian. Didn't have a rocking program.
Yeah, okay, so didn't have, I mean, we had a rocking program, it just wasn't, I don't know if you wanna call, whatever you wanna call it, coordinated,
Was it consistent?
planned,
No.
not consistent, no, it was just, either way. So probably, I'd say 8 or 9 years ago, I started building a rocking program on a spreadsheet. My superintendent retired, and I hired him back about, 5 months after he retired, just part-time. He still works part-time, and as far as I'm concerned, is invaluable. I use him for office stuff. He doesn't do anything shop-related. When he retired, he wanted to be done with the phone calls and done with the meetings and.
Who's that?
Jim Hilkin is his name. Anyway, so I kind of sicked him on the early onset of this because he, of course, knew the road system. And so we built a rocking program that allowed us to have a plan and be consistent, and also allowed us to fit the budget that we have and the amount of rock that we have and all that sort of stuff. And it's a multi-page spreadsheet. I mean, it just doesn't do it justice, honestly, but it's in the end, the big picture is that we took an estimate of the amount of rock that we could afford. And then we split it into a program, and you can see on those maps, all those, and I'll be right up front with you. I mean, these aren't public, we don't hand these out to just anybody. I mean, they're public information, but they're our internal working document, that's what they are. And so, different roads have different rates, you can see that. Rate is tons per mile, so when you rock a road, you do tons per mile. That's kind of the world of rocking. And you will very quickly, if you think of a busy gravel road, you'll realize that some of those busier roads have a higher ton per mile than some of the lower roads, volume driveway, driving wise, that have a lower ton per mile. And there's not a rocket science to it. It's just trying to build a 450 mile program that, and the beginning goal was to try to rock every road every other year. However, we have a roughly 30 miles of road that have to have rock a minimum once a year. And that's one, because of traffic, and two, because of the dust control program. And our early goals were actually to rock those twice a year. We tried to rock them in the spring and the fall. I will tell you this, we have aborted the fall rocking. We don't have the money for it, and typically in the fall, it's difficult to split the resources off for it, because we're working on ditching is a big fall item for us if we can. And so our bodies are committed elsewhere in the fall, and so, I laid out this program, in the maps I have in front of you. We have 8 motor grader districts. Again, I guess that's kind of a big picture thing. I'll just give you an overview and credit to Austin, because what we do is I kind of work through GIS department with Austin on all this stuff. We put together things and then he makes it look good. So we have 8 districts. Anyway, north end of the county. So just to give you a relative idea, District 1, that's our biggest mileage. So that's 70 miles, give or take, that guy has to cover.
Who is in District 1?
Rob Moore.
Rob?
Yep. And District 2 is right here. I would kind of describe it as southeast of Mediapolis. District 3, I would call northeast of Mediapolis. District 4 is kind of the Pleasant Grove area, I would describe it as. District 5 is south of that area, so kind of pinned between the Pleasant Grove area and Burlington. So, thanks, Colin. District 6 is kind of up in the bottoms, kind of pinned north of Burlington, not 99, kind of Irish or even the highway over to the river. District 7 is down around the Danville area. And District 8 is a much smaller district, but it doesn't play like a smaller district because he is pinned, he runs all the way from county line to the river, but he has the ammunition plant in Burlington taking his entire, so if you look at it on that map, he's long and skinny. It takes him forever to get from one end to the other. And he's got, thank you, Colin, let's get it out. I just wanted to see, so we have 8 districts, and you can see only one of them is significantly smaller, and it doesn't play like a smaller district because he has some of the highest traffic, because he's bordering Burlington. And then you get all the way out, he's got hills, he got the bluff hills down along Skunk River. You guys have plenty of calls about skunk and its challenges and everything else.
There's a military term for that, it's called inside mines.
There you go. There you go. Well, so the goal was to split this up. So what we did was just because to make it as simple as possible, because you are asking somebody to look at, we hang these maps in our sheds, our motor grader sheds, so the guys know ahead of time what they're going to get rock on and where they're going to get rock. And we're in we're at the end of the 3rd cycle. So this is the 6th year we've been doing this. So we started with an orange year. So orange, yellow, orange last year, yellow this year. So we're at the end of a 6th cycle in this rocking program. It has worked really well. Is it perfect? No, there's no question about it. But one of the things that it quickly became clear of is, as you look through those maps, is there are blue roads. You've seen the yellow and the orange. The blue roads are the ones, as best as I could when I was building this program, I tried to gear the blue roads. The blue roads are the ones originally when we laid this out, we did not have the annual money to rock those roads. They did not fit in the every other year rocking schedule. And they were just simply gonna be, we were trying to keep them as low a volume as possible roads, so they have a little bit less traffic kind of a thing. But we just simply, we were just gonna deal with them as best we could and not necessarily have rock dedicated to those roads at any given point. It's just, it's a life of road departments. You have a budget, you live by the budget, and you use that budget as best as you can, but you never get everything you want. And that should really be the way government works, period. But so, at some point, and I don't remember, you know, we're probably talking 7 years ago, 8 years ago, honestly, I don't remember how it came about. It was definitely after the years of '08 when we were heading towards broke in that era. And the budget came back, the county rural services came back solid and everything else. And in the end, and credit to the board, I've said this before, I'll say it again. Of course, we do that dust control program every year, and if you want to see which roads get dust control, you can just look at the red ones on any given map, and those are the full-length dust control roads. Because the red one, so there's 4 different colors, I should have mentioned that earlier. There's yellow and orange, that's the big picture. And then there's red, those get dust control, calcium chloride every year, full length. And then there's blue, and I mentioned that blue are the roads that we just, it's not because of who lives there, it's because we just had to shave money out somewhere. And so, again, keeping in context, what we did was we tried to impact every district equally when I built this spreadsheet. So you don't, it's all based on percentage, and it all goes back to percentage of mileage of the overall. So if District 1 has 70 miles, guess what? District 1's gonna get more rock. I mean, if District 4 has the less, or District 8 has the least mileage, which it does, District 8's gonna get the least rock. I don't care if you're a good blader operator or not, it's not gonna change anything. The rock is distributed through a percentage situation, not by what your last name is, not by the taxes that you pay, not by whether you feel like you should have more or less. I couldn't care less about any of that. It's a statistical driven split on how we do our business. And so, back to not having enough money, at some point, the board, I'm sure we had a work session or something like that, and the board approached me. And again, those chloride roads have to be rocked every year. There's no, they could be rocked twice a year, to be very honest with you, and it wouldn't hurt them at all. But they have to be rocked a minimum once a year. So.
Is the calcium that hard on the rock?
It's a dust, any dust control product creates a different dynamic on a gravel road. It's just a fact, any dust control product. They all create different dynamics. So before calcium chloride, and it used to be tree sap that we got for free out of Fort Madison, it was a byproduct, out of a paper mill that's since long gone. Same thing there. I mean, those roads had a different dynamic, and that's kind of, that was, not to digress, but that was kind of the mold we had to shrink down to be able to afford it, to where we jumped into the dust control program that we have now, or chloride program, or safety program, whatever you want to call it. And so the problem with the current program is we pay for it. Before, it was a free byproduct, so and nobody cared about the labor and the equipment that I had, so, or that the county had, so it was free. And so anyway, we went to a chloride product because, to be honest with you, you can maintain a chloride product. You know, once you put sap down, it's one and done. It will never be stronger than day one, and if you blade it, you're really going to exponentially make it weaker. Chloride is a product that you can blade. And let's face it, these are the busier roads, so we do need to occasionally blade these roads. That's one of them that Jim just mentioned this morning that we bladed, South Prairie Grove. That's a chloride road, and occasionally it does need bladed. And so the answer is yes. Some of that need for rock is because these are the busier roads and they have more traffic, plain and simple. Some of that need for rock is the chloride. And I don't think I can give you some perfect split of how much is each cause or whatever it is. It's just a fact.
What about the size of the rock, just like that gentleman that was here? You know, he said the rock's so
you
big,
can
which I've never seen any rock
exaggerate
that big, and I've never seen anybody complain.
Well,
about it.
there's no softballs unless every so often you end up with a softball out the back of a truck from the quarry. I mean, that was an exaggeration. He doesn't like, we've been hauling, our spot rock, if we're gonna spend the money on spot rock over on the mud stuff we've been dealing with, we haul 1.5-inch rock. And he hates the 1.5-inch rock. I mean, and I don't.
Why, is that, are they getting flats or something, or?
It can cause more flats, it's just rougher rock.
Yeah, you can't fly down the roads on it.
I'm about to say that, yeah.
It's a little bumpier.
Put
just
it
as
on
big
your
rock.
Right.
sea level road, don't you, on the dirt?
They want a boogie.
Well, I mean, we don't put rock on our
Yeah, I know,
levels, but I mean, it's a bigger rock, it just is. I mean, and we will quit using it as soon as we can, but if we're going to haul, if we're gonna haul rock to, into soft, significantly soft conditions, we're gonna haul rock that will help stabilize. Our road rock is, so our bigger rock, what we would call bigger rock, what he's talking mostly is probably 1.5-inch road, what we would call it. That means that the largest rock in the entire thing is 1.5 inch. Most of it's probably 1.25 inch or smaller, which doesn't mean anything here, but just to give you a relative. Our normal road rock is what we call inch mod or inch road. And the biggest rock in it is 1 inch. And then of course, on down is more of the, so.
That's
and
the average
even-
that you guys use, the 1-inch rock?
That's 98% of what we use on a daily basis. And I'll be the first to say, there are people that don't like it either. But,
I don't, I
But,
prefer the bigger rock,
but,
myself, I'll just drive slower.
well, when I first got here, they used what they called a Class A. That was the term of it, and there was nothing in that bigger than 3/4 inch, which meant everything was 1/2 inch or smaller, which is a lot more fines. And I've gone through this. Yeah, I don't wish but to make a good gravel road, you need all of it. You need everything from the, you always get hit up. All you're doing is hauling is dust. Well, you got to have all of it. You got to have the dust all the way up to the big rock. I mean, no different than concrete. I mean, it all goes together and makes a cap. Now, if you're hauling to a pure mud hole, you could probably haul 2-inch clean, and you got the mud. So you're just looking to stabilize it. But in a road surface that you're given to a blade guy to maintain, and most of these roads over the next 2 years before it gets rock again, you need something that it's kind of got the big end, it's kind of got the small end, and in the end, your goal is to make it all work together and make a cap. I mean, if you haul nothing but dust, it won't help that road surface. If you haul nothing but clean big stuff, it'll just marble around and it won't tie down very well. So you need kind of a mix. And here's the other thing, we have limestone. That's all we have. I mean, we have 4 quarries, and what they have is what we have. I mean, we don't have the money to go trucking or hiring a train to haul in some rock that somebody else thinks is better or doesn't have more sharp stuff in it, or whatever the argument is.
Or is it a different color?
Or different color, whatever it is. That's a biggie. The reality is that we have what we have. We do the testing as best as we can, and all these quarries are DOT certified. So they're putting out DOT certified rock quality-wise. And there are different opinions, and some guys hate the brown rock, some guys hate the white rock. I mean, it's a lot of it's personal preference. I mean, we have quarries, they all have different dynamics. Guess what? We need them all. I mean, they just all have a service area. And blasting and crushing rock is not an exact science. I mean, we try to, the quarry, it's in their best interest to do the best they can. It's in our best interest to kind of work with them, but also to oversee what they're doing. But on rare occasions, sometimes we just, we had a quarry 15 years ago or 12 years ago that we weren't there, and they ended up being with a lot more dirt and clods and clay stuff in their pile than what they were supposed to be, and we actually told them if it ever happened again, we'd never be back. And that was a big quarry. And they apologized. When they didn't do enough stripping. They got cheap and lazy on their stripping and ended up running a bunch of clay through during the crushing process. I mean, that was really the context of what happened there, so,
Frank,
So-
can I ask you one thing before you
Yeah.
go any further? RT 300, T 240, what's all over this map? What's that mean?
rate 240.
Rates 240,
Rate, RT is short for rate,
okay,
so
and then you're putting 240.
T is the total tons. So,
Okay.
so it's a rate of 300 ton per mile, but because that's not a full mile of road, there's
Okay.
only 240
Well,
tons. So this map is not built for you and me.
No,
This map is built for guys that are running trucks and for my superintendent that needs to know how much rock to tell those guys that they're gonna have. I mean, cause when you send 3 semis out to spot and our guys have gotten really good at, but you need to know, when you know your rate, you gotta know your speed, you gotta know how wide to open the bottom of your dump box, you gotta know how wet your rock is because it comes out faster or slower, there's all these dynamics. And so they do the best they can, so if they're rocking that segment and it needed 240 tons, they're aiming for a rate.
okay.
When they get to the end of that road, they may have only put down 220 tons. And then they can go back and spot in that 20 tons if they need it. Or they may be at 250 tons or 260 tons, and they realize, oh, this is drier rock. It's coming out faster than I realized. And so we're gonna pinch on the next row, we're gonna pinch our gate down on the bottom of our trailer because this rock's drier now and it's coming out faster than we thought. Or we need to speed up. I mean, I give them a lot of credit because the 3 guys we have that do this all summer long do a really nice job of it when you're talking about you're driving a semi on a rough gravel road.
Well, I just didn't know what it meant, so now.
That's what it is.
You understand the map better.
No, I'm all for that.
Tom probably knew.
So that's the difference, rate and tonnage. And so, back to the blue, let's go back to the blue and everything else you guys do. The blue we don't have money for. Let's go back to that part of the conversation. The board says, what could we do to help? Well, the answer to that is, I mean, if you kind of sort of want, if you want to help, these chloride roads they're there. And they're the busier roads, so they're already there to be dealt with anyway. They probably need rock every single year, even without chloride. And so the board offered to start up a rocking program. And so those 30 miles, which are the red roads on your maps, the Irish Ridge, the Roosevelt, there's certain roads in certain districts, that they, every other year, the board pays for a rocking program. That means that doesn't come out of our stockpiles, that they buy the rock and they pay for the hauling. It's a $210,000.
Let me throw something in here. This, and you've heard us talk, there's only so much money that you can give secondary roads.
Sure.
You can give them $3 $3 out of the rural services levy, and that's only paid by property that's outside the incorporated limits of all the cities, in other words, Burlington, West Burlington, Mediapolis, Danville, and Middletown. And they get 16 cents out of the general levy that's paid by everybody. Okay. So whatever that number, for our purpose, I'm gonna say that's about $2.5 million a year. Anyway, so that's all we can give to turn over to secondary roads. That's the maximum amount. And some counties don't
even give that.
Don't do that. You have to give 75% or you don't get the money from the state. But this is, the boards I've served on, we've always wanted the transportation infrastructure that's a concern to people. So we do the maximum. To get the extra 200 grand every other year comes out of rural services.
Directly.
And so that's sort of like, that's the general levy for people that don't live in an incorporated city, that's the rural. So that comes out of their property taxes.
Every other year?
Yeah, well, we take 100,000 a year
Yeah.
if we want 200,000. So we take half of it out every year, but we only have that hauling
That
every
expense.
year. That's the only way we could fund it, but it does come out of rural services property taxes. So we've added that, and, because that's the legal way to do it. We cannot give any more. I think there's some counties, probably still borrow money to maintain roads.
Oh, I'm sure there are.
Anyway, and I cannot imagine doing that. That's using your credit card to buy groceries. Eventually, there you are.
Right on.
Anyway,
So we manage the program, same as the dust control for that matter. I bid it, I manage it, I staff it. I mean, the board doesn't do anything, but the money is priceless. Because what we do is then we run the claim through, but it doesn't come out of our account, it does come out of rural services directly, because that's the only way that can happen. They can't give me any more money, and there are departments that beg their boards. From rural, Louisa County is an example. I mean, they don't get the 100%. I don't know that they get 80%. I don't know where they're at, but there are a lot of counties that aren't at the 100%. We're very fortunate. The board said we've been 100% since before I was here, and that could be all it is. But in this case, that rocking program, we rock. So when you guys rock those roads, when the board rocks those roads, we rock them at 500 ton per mile. If you look at the maps, it only says 400 ton per mile. When we rock them at 400 ton per mile, because that's the program that we build, and that's what we can figure into our overall rocking picture. The 500 ton per mile, I mean, I suppose you can accuse me of taking advantage of the board, but every other year it's a higher rate. It's an extra 100 ton. And so what that does, that program does, is we then divert every other year when the contractor, it helps us on two fronts. It's a labor help, which is a time help. They both go hand in hand. And a rock help, a cost help, however you want to look at that. Every other year when the contractors are hauling that rock, that allows us to dedicate more time, and so we take the rock we're not putting on those roads that year and put them on the blue roads. If that wasn't, that program was.
Blue roads every other year?
Yes. So if that program was not going on, these blue roads would be reverted back to roads that we don't have the resources, as we said it here, to cover. It is not a pure wash. I gotta be honest with you, it's been a long time since I looked at this spreadsheet, and I actually need to revamp it a little bit, because we've made a few small changes. But to give you just a rough idea, at 400, why don't we just do it at 500 tons? That way you guys can, when you guys do that, it's, let's see.
Tell you a quick story, Shane. When I was first running, the first election, I go out to the county fair. Anyway, so wandering around, electioneering, shaking people's hands. Anyway, and I know that 10 different people, anyway, would have told me what needed to be done with the county roads, and it was 10 different things. I mean, and we're not talking people who don't know anything. They just, maybe their road's a little different, or they're used to whatever they said, what you need to do is this. And then 10 minutes later said something, what you really need to do is this. And it was interesting, so I knew right then that it was sometimes it's a no-win situation. And they were all, it's so.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that Bob's a great example. Bob's been living in this county forever and ever. Probably was born in this county for all I know. They've got family farm ground. Bob doesn't farm, I don't believe. He rents his ground out, but but Bob doesn't like the big rock. And I won't be the only guy that doesn't like the big rock. Then there's other guys that don't like the small rock. And rock is one of those things where you will never find a common. They'd see there's too much rock, there's too little rock, it's the wrong color rock. It's one of those things that.
It's not just rock, brother,
Yeah,
but right on.
It's not harmonic. You're never gonna have that perfect world.
Some people that just build a house in the country don't like it because it's rock.
Yeah, but that's the truth. So anyway, roughly just to give you an idea, it's not a pure offset, just to give you an idea. When we rock those roads, we rock them at 400 ton, okay, for our program. That ends up being about 11,500 tons, just so you hear the number. It doesn't matter to anything other than to give you a big picture. When we turn around the next year and rock the blue roads take 13,000 and almost 700 tons. So it is not a true balance. We use about 2,000 tons more rock in the year that we do the blue roads than when we're rocking the
Yellow and,
the red roads.
oh, okay.
So when you guys rock the red roads, we put it down at 500 tons. So you guys are actually running just under 15,000 tons of rock, because the fact is when you add 100 tons and take it times almost 30 miles, it adds 3,000 tons. So point being is it's not a perfect offset, but in our world what it does is it allows us to go after those blue roads. It's a far bigger picture than what I'm laying out for you guys, and I have no desire to subject you to, I mean, there's far more. I mean, there really is. I mean, but that's our world and not your world.
This is nice.
But the motto here, and what I wanted to explain to Shane as much as possible was, we do have a system. There is a rhyme and reason behind it. It has worked very well for 6 years now. And in every other year, every taxpayer is seeing rock on their road. So, unless they live on pavements, and then they don't see rock on their road.
What about a driveway?
If there's anything that I should know, I'll call you up.
Yeah, you can call with your
Yes.
questions. I know you gotta get going.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jim.
What about mud roads?
See ya.
We do not rock, in fact, this conversation just came up. It'll come up about a half dozen times this year. We have 64 miles of dirt road. B-level roads is what we call them. Our policy is black and white. We do not put surfacing on them unless the engineer has discretion for emergency situations. I can tell you, I can only think of one spot in 17 years where I've rocked a dirt road. Because it still gets rocked very rarely, but it's the back way in because we had to close a 3-ton bridge. And let's face it, rocking once every 5 or 6 years a little bit is cheaper than putting in about a $500,000 or $600,000 structure. So we built a little water crossing, which they use all but maybe 2 weeks out of the year. And when the water's up, they go the other way out that dirt road. I'll show that sometime when we're out and about. It's clear up off 99, Hawkeye Road, where we built that little water crossing. Bridge is still there.
It's a neat old bridge.
It's a neat old bridge. It's a neat location. It's really a cool location. And I love the location because of the little water crossing, because the guys did an awesome job on it.
20 years ago, I'd have climbed it for you.
Yeah, I'm willing to let you try.
I'm gonna watch that.
But
That interest is gone.
But, so like I said, big picture, and Shane, I want to tail this to any questions you have from comments you've had from people. But big picture is we do have a rocking program. Some years we would have already started by now. I mean, honestly, we'll start as early as we can, because it takes pretty much 4 bodies the entire summer. I mean, it takes that much. And the sooner we get done with it, the sooner we can take those 4 bodies and move them into a different function, like ditching, like whatever else it is that we need 4 bodies, because we are not staffed at a point where we have people just with nothing to do. We fill them up.
What about before you put down fresh gravel, do you grade every time or no? Or how's that
We
work?
do try, I mean, the goal is to blade a road before it gets rocked, but I'll be the first to admit, sometimes things turn random. You're the superintendent and you're geared up and you're in the middle of rocking district number 3 out of Nelson Quarry. And then you get an email that night or that evening from Nelson Quarry saying we're closing down tomorrow because we have OSHA training. Well, you got rock trucks, you got bodies, it's the conditions, you're gonna rock. So next thing you know, you call up and piss off blade guy number 4 or number 1 or whatever, and you're like, hey, we're coming to you because we need to move to L&W Quarry because Nelson's gonna be closed tomorrow. And so you lay rock, you keep going, and so no, yes, we like to blade every single time before every load of rock goes down, but reality is not always perfect. So that's
But that is
true.
the best way, preferred way to do it though.
You'd like to. Now here's the other dynamic. We rock, I mean, as soon as we start rocking, again, we're going for 4 to 6 months, depending on the weather we get. It's really easy to say we're gonna blade right ahead of the trucks right now when you have, or from now until let's say May, when there's moisture, when you typically get moisture and typically the conditions are right for blading. But when you get into August and you've bladed the roads whenever they need it, and you get to that point in August when it's bone dry and there's dust flying and the road's in pretty good condition and everything else, you're probably not gonna go blade that road up just because you got rock coming to it. I mean, we do lay rock in August, we lay rock all the way through, but, so it's also,
I'm hearing you.
it's also a seasonal thing. So I don't wanna sit here and tell you we blade right before we haul rock,
No, I
because
got you. I agree.
sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And it's a dynamic, it changes, sometimes day to day.
But you've
So,
answered several of my questions with the, you know, even with the, it's a mix, you know, with the gravel. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's big, small, you got all of it to make it what it is. Well, that's some complaints I already got is, you know, how come it's not consistent with the gravel? You know, well,
well, I guess it depends on what consistent means, but,
well, that's what I'm saying, I don't even know what they're talking about, because it could not even, you know, you could be very well consistent, and they could just be picked up.
What I do, and I get those calls too, is some of them I can answer. If I can't answer, if I'm not comfortable answering, and I always, even if I've explained something, I always give them the secondary roads and tell them to call, and I said, the county engineer will, if he's not there, I said, he'll get back to you, somebody, and explain it to you better than I can, better than you can now. 2 years from now, you'll be able to answer a few of those questions, but there's always gonna be something.
Right on.
or like you've already done, you can message me and say, hey, had somebody ask me this, and if it's too complicated to text, and I don't have a long duration for texting, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'll pick up the phone and call you and say, here's the deal. Now, the thing with me, you may not like the deal. I mean, sometimes it's
Dude, I get it.
what it is.
I get it.
But I will call you and say, here's what's going on, here's the situation with that. And you can call them back if they don't, you know, they wanna stay obscure or don't want, whatever. And you can explain to them as best as you can repeat what I say, and that's fine too. I mean, I've had, every board member that I've ever had has done both of these methods of communication. But I just had a guy last week call, and you know, we're hauling 1.5 inch rock. Well, one of the biggest complaints you'll get about rock, period, is that it makes flat tires. I mean, I'm sure Colin's had them, I have had them personally, plenty of times. Terry, I'm sure, has had them. Not all flat tires on rock roads are because of the rock, but rock can cause flat tires. There's a seam in our rock quarries that we have, it's called chert. And it's basically arrowhead material. I mean, that's a kind of a layman's way to call it.
Right.
It crushes very angular, and it's not a big percentage. It's like in an 80-foot wall, there might be a foot of that 80-foot wall that's that particular layer. And the rest of the 80-foot is all different kinds of other kinds of rock.
Well, do you get a lot of phone calls after you lay down fresh gravel for flats?
Yes. Yeah.
So
Well, it goes in spurts. We don't. It'll be a burst and then nothing, and a burst and then nothing. And a lot of times it's on a certain road. And I've always explained that the reason I feel is for that is because here's the crushing process. Big wall of rock, explosion, big wall of rock collapses. Loader takes big wall of rock and bucket by bucket and dumps in crusher, runs through crusher into another truck, goes to pile. Okay, that's, I just laid out in 1 minute the crushing process. When that loader happens to scoop up a chunk of rock that's got that 1 foot seam, guess what that truck that spits out the end of the crushing process is gonna have more of than probably any other truck in that. So again, chunk goes through, it's got chert in it, what's what we call is chert. But it crushes angular. I mean, if you find the right piece, you'll swear it's an arrowhead, other than it's not quite shaped right. Here's the other thing about chert. It tends to crush angular. So when they crush rock, there's a grid. I mean, it's going through screens is what it's going through, and the size of screen determines the size of rock you get out the bottom. Well, if you have a rock that crushes angular, and it sits there and bounces for a while, it might be an 1.5 inch rock. It could be 3 inches long. But width-wise, it's only 1.5 inches. And it bounce, and down through. Well, a 3 inch arrowhead will do mean things to any tire. I don't care what kind of equipment you're driving, because we've had problems with our trucks before. But the problem is every one of our quarries has chert. You get more calls about it from L&W for two reasons. One, because L&W services the biggest part of our county. I mean, it's just a fact. It's got the biggest service area in our entire county of any quarry. Secondly, I would have to say their seam of chert is probably slightly bigger depending on where they're at in their crushing. Because that seam gets thinner and thicker as you move. It's not the same. No, it's all geological and it changes. It varies. Next year it'll be different than this year. And so when we're laying 1.5 inch rock, it's a lot more common. You're probably going to get some calls because you get that bigger. When you go down to your 1 inch rock, it's still got the same chert in it. That same 1 foot layer is still going through, but it's smaller. And so I think why we get bursts of calls is because as they're rocking Beaverdale Road, or as they're rocking a 3 mile long road or whatever it is, they're gonna go through that pile. Now, maybe every scoop's got a small amount of that
But
chert.
there's gonna be one spot where it's heavy with chert.
There's a scoop in there somewhere
Right. I'm seeing.
that's got, and it's not like it's pink or magnetic. It's not like the guy in the loader could tell you what's going in or what's not. There's where that dump, there's my scoop. So maybe the next 2 or 3 trucks have a higher percentage of chert because of that being where that dumped in the pile. That dumps onto the ground and strings out over about 75 to 100 feet.
Right.
And so odds are is then your percentage of tire problems is gonna go up in that location. And there's no real magical way to stop it. I mean, if we really get a ton of calls, we try to blade that section up a little bit more to get that to tie in. But it's a dynamic. And so rock it's the #1 thing brought up by any new board member since at least my beginning of doing this. Because we got 400 and some odd miles, 450 miles of it. I mean,
I got a call 2 weeks ago from a woman, and I'd met her a few years ago. I don't remember where I met her. So the reason she called me, she said, I thought I could trust you. Okay. So anyway.
I thought that once too.
Anyway, so well, I disabused her back. So anyway, so I said, well, what's, she said, I'm living out here, and she said, of course, that's when it was so wet and muddy with holes and stuff like that. And she said, to be fair, she said, I moved here from the Southwest in Arizona.
Oh.
I said, well, she said, I know. So she asked me, and I said, it's not gonna be very much fun for the next 3 weeks. I said, you can't haul rock, something like that, And I said, and you can call. I said, the county engineer, feel free to call him. I said, or call either of the other board members. I said, each one of them will be honest with you and explain it to you best you can. I said, you might not always like the answer. And she said, I appreciate that. I gave her secondary roads, and I said, if you'd like a better explanation, I said, they can do that. And so she was fine with that. But she I don't know whether she just thought she'd get blown off, but she was, and I don't remember how, but she just moved out in the country in the last year or two. But she was here from Arizona, so she wasn't used to
a lot of things.
Yeah, a lot of things.
From this winter.
So, but she appreciated that.
Yeah, I talked to so many people in the last month, I couldn't tell you if we had anybody call like that or not, and Becky may have handled it, may never gotten to me, but, so yeah, I wanted to hit this because again, I gotta keep reminding myself that I got a new board member and.
I've got one more question and I'm good.
You can ask 100 more questions.
Well, you answered it.
Colin's
really
the one
did.
that's worn out.
And
I'm good.
this is really gonna come in handy, but for dirt roads, because I do
Back to
have-
dirt roads, I'm
right,
sorry.
right.
You asked that, you started there. I didn't circle back to that. We have 60 some miles of dirt road. I wanna say 64 off the top of my head. I have another sheet I should have brought and I walked out without it. Our policy is we don't surface those roads. I talked about the emergency situation and that kind of deal, but we don't surface those roads. If a landowner contacts me, a farmer, I've had this happen twice off the top of my head, and they want to rock it to a machine shop or something like that, I'll have them do a permit. I will let them rock it, but I am upfront with them right off the bat that we will not rock it ourselves. And that they're out that money. It's a public road. So I have another gentleman who built a house, a new house, he got flooded out of the bottoms, and then he eventually decided what he wanted to do, and he built a house. I mean, that wasn't like it was immediate. And he owned some ground, like a quarter mile or less even down a dirt road, and wanted to build a house down there, and, because that's where his ground was. And I said, you can do this, but you're gonna have, this is, you know, it already had the right of way, but I said, you're gonna have to reshape it or something to get for some drainage. And I said, and we won't rock that for you, and we won't plow snow on that. They are untouched as far as our world is. We will blade them during the summer when the conditions are right, but they're not our priorities. And he did, and I went just the way I assumed. He was I won't say he was an older gentleman to start with, but he was an older gentleman. He was probably in his low 50s or something like that when we had the first conversation.
See, he does that. Not an older gentleman. It says low.
Are they recording this? I'm gonna say so.
Here's that went to. All of a sudden, 10 years later, after he's built the house, he's now in his 60s. You know, all the stuff he needed to do to get in and out of this during the winter time when he was younger and had whatever it was, didn't matter. Now, about 2 years ago, he corners me and is just pissed off. We won't rock it. And nothing's changed. We won't rock it. We won't plow the snow on it. It fills up with snow and
Well, he's gotten older, that's what changed, he didn't want to
Yeah.
build that crap anymore.
And I told him, I said, we did this. We had this conversation. I mean, he was livid. I'm not talking just mad, livid. And he got me in public. He didn't just come out to my office. He caught me when I was not on work. And I said, and he's a veteran. He played a lot. He played a couple different cards. And I know the guy. He's a nice guy. But anyway,
Sorry about that.
no, you're fine. You're fine. And I said, our policies haven't changed. I said, you're welcome to come to a board meeting, talk to the board. I understand, you know, and thank you for your service. This has nothing to do with anything else. This is just, we have 60-some miles of dirt road, and we treat them all the same. And if we start changing that up, that's 60-some miles. I can't even afford what I got, much less and every year, at least a half dozen times, I've already had my first call. I've got family ground down there, want to build a house, tell me the process, and I'll kind of roll through it, and then I'll mail them the process, and they'll say, yeah, but I'm building the tax base. You guys won't, this is ridiculous. I'm gonna call the board. What we're doing for the tax base, and you won't improve this road and rock it? And I said, I just tell them, you're not doing enough to the tax base for the road department you couldn't afford a load of rock or 2 loads of rock. I mean, the math doesn't work well in your argument at all. And I tell them, you're welcome to come talk to the board. I said, it's a policy, it's not a flexibility thing for me, it's just the way it is. Because we do have an upgrade policy for what you can do to upgrade a dirt road. If you wish, there's a full policy. We can get
What
through
about
that.
development? What if there was not just one house, but what if there was a bunch of development going on? That changes the rules then, right?
I don't care.
And
I
it
was just
was
asking a question.
also,
See?
No, I'm not.
No, man, I'm not gonna ask you anything else, Brian. I can't do this.
No, it's a great question.
But your
I don't
answer
care if it's
is,
1 house or 100 houses.
Really?
As far as I'm concerned, we have a policy. That policy is gonna apply to you.
even if it was 100 houses, Brian.
Yeah, absolutely.
well, for one thing, if they're building on a gravel or on a dirt road, those are usually only 40-foot width.
They don't have
And-
the right away.
Yep, and if they want it improved, then they have to dedicate
They
the
gotta,
additional right-of-way that's needed.
they gotta get the right of way, they have to, now, here's the answer to you, Shane. If you're gonna go out and you've got enough property that you're gonna do a large improvement, 50 houses even to be realistic, I mean, so you're looking at a big development, big subdivision, everything else. Realistically, your profit is probably such that you're probably going to be willing to work through our policy because the value is there. If you have that much ground and that much ability to clear profit on it, to go through our policy to make it worth your while. But I'm not gonna treat you, developer, any differently than I'm gonna treat farmer, Joe, that wants to put a hog building out in the middle of a dirt road and which.
But you haven't had anybody come to try to squeeze you that way in the last 10
Oh,
years?
I get dirt road calls, like I said, about half dozen every single year.
Okay, okay.
Absolutely. I wouldn't say that I've ever had anybody come and say, we wanna do 50 houses or anything like that. Most of the time, it's I bought a 40, or my family has a 40 and I wanna put a house up. That's a majority of the calls I get. It's some sort of ground they either can buy, or they have access to, or they already own, or it's family ground or whatever, and they wanna build their house there because that's where their family ground is. And that's more the conversation that typically happens.
Chairman, what about you?
Same thing, we've never given.
What are you getting on, what are you getting on dirt roads?
Oh,
Anything
I've
like
gotten them in the past. I suppose the people that complained about have already talked to me.
So they won't call you back.
I think they can petition the board and ask to make something
Well-
a Class B road, isn't it, or Class?
Well, you can upgrade to a Class A. A regular gravel road these days is considered Class A.
And I don't know if I remember anybody coming, but I've had people talk to me.
We had a guy from the ethanol plant that we sat in here. Was that when you were on the board, I believe, at that point? And he bought ground with the intention of building a really nice house on the top of a hill up about a quarter mile of dirt road. And there was an old bridge between him and the gravel road. And I mean, he was done, signed, sealed, delivered here. He bought the ground and called me, ready to dig a hole and ready for the road to be rocked. And we ended up down here. He didn't like my answers.
I think that was before me.
Okay, we sat in here, laid the policy out. He went through all the typical arguments. And I mean, that's why we have an ordinance. And if the board wants to do something different, and I've always used this as encouragement, just as your example. If somebody comes in here with a 50 whatever subdivision and the board wants to flex it, my comment to them is, we will follow whatever policies the board at that time wants to put into place. But please don't change it. Don't just verbally do this. Let's go through the ordinance process. Let's do 3 readings and change the ordinance. And the other thing I will always do is point out the long-term impacts and costs, because I'm the one, the board obviously approves my budget, but I'm the one that then has to deal with that. Or I'll point out the challenges on a dirt road that it will present if it's ever upgraded. And so I would say the best thing, I actually need to dig that policy up because I have somebody, Zach's topic, land, family ground, dirt road, wants to build a house.
Right.
Friends of mine actually. I need to send them the policy because they want to see what it is. They won't be happy, that's nothing new. And so when I dig that up, the best thing I could do is put it in front of you so you can, 1, take a look at the policy, and 2, pass it on to anybody you want.
I remember for a while, there were a number of people out at the alcohol plant that wanted the roads posted out there because they were unhappy that those semis were on the road so much, so they wanted the roads posted. I can't remember which one. Remember that, Brian? There were a handful of people, they wanted just those roads posted.
They wanted Flint Bottom embargoed.
Was it Flint Bottom?
They wanted us to put an embargo in, which means a weight limit below what a loaded semi truck.
On Flint Bottom?
Because they wanted the ethanol plant trucks to quit going that way to get to the ethanol plant. I mean, that was
but I guess I'm just saying about the ethanol plant. The other one I think was before me, but I do remember the people that weren't, I couldn't remember, it was Flint Bottom, but they didn't want that semi-traffic on their road.
Yeah, there was an old gentleman, he's passed away now, lived on the corner of Flint Bottom and Beaverdale and.
Drew Beyer?
No.
Krieger?
Tager.
Tager.
Mitch Tager's dad. I can't remember I should remember because I talked to him multiple times. And what's funny was he was an old farmer, but he was fed up with grain traffic coming by his house. So he thought that'd be a great idea for the county to keep that from going through there. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, the answer is yes, dirt road conversations come up. They've come up because of hog buildings, they've come up because of houses. I don't believe that I've ever had anybody come up with a large kind of subdivision development, at least made it that I recall, but, I mean, to say it hasn't, I couldn't tell you, maybe it has. So, yeah.
I didn't get one phone call though about, during when we got all that snow and ice and everything, from anybody off of Dirt Road.
Well, that's
All
because
I got was
nobody,
gravel phone.
that's because, other than that one house I'm thinking of, nobody lives down them, because there's no service to them. I mean, they want to, they might want to, but then ultimately, the other issue is that they can't, the school buses, I mean, you start thinking about the services you need. A lot of dirt roads don't have the utilities you need down there, because there's no houses. So unless they happen to cut from point A to point B, and they went through a dirt road with a utility permit, there, all of a sudden you start looking at building on dirt road, and it's not that simple, because
There's nothing built on Dirt Road?
it's not developed. Agricultural stuff.
I thought we had some
Run a
houses on
power
it.
line from a gravel road,
I'm thinking
if you
one,
live a
but
mile
it's
down or
down
half a
about-
mile
I
down the
thought there
road.
was a
Or
couple-
water.
Not the dirt, but the one I'm thinking right off is maybe
I was gonna
it's not a quarter of a
mention,
mile, maybe 100
jokingly,
yards.
but like this dirt road up here in District 1 off of 250th, you
Yep.
know, right off the main highway there.
Yep.
That was real important to a teenage boy about 20 years ago, chase his high school girl just down here. So that one, you might want to take that one into
Wait,
consideration.
there are a lot of teenage kids invested in dirt roads.
That's really important. Let's take care of the important things first.
I had a very fun time trying to get down that dirt road. Get that girl down there, so.
I can appreciate that.
When we have road tours, Jim always checks out his old parking
Yeah,
places.
Jim orients himself in the county by the dirt road and the girl.
He knew places, he used to park places I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
When you're a teenage boy and you live up here in the in the gravel roads, those dirt roads are very important.
That's a fair statement, that's a fair statement.
That's an entirely different set of priorities.
My girlfriend at the time lived on a paved road, so I didn't have the same issue,
Okay.
But point taken, Colin, point taken.
I had sweating bullets there a few times trying to make it down.
I bet you were.
I had some conversations with my dad's, yelling at me a few times to stay off there.
Well, and that's the thing, the farmers like to use them. So they're the ones that get the most fed up when they get torn up, because once they stand water, it's weeks and weeks, maybe a month
Oh, it takes
before
forever for those things to
before you
dry
can
out.
blade them. And they just hate them getting torn up.
Oh, man, I'll bet.
So,
I did have a quick question though, like, down off like 150th there,
yep,
family's got a lot of ground down there.
yep.
They put in that subdivision down there right off the road. That's
Yes.
got like 8 to 10 houses.
Ernie Gerst,
Oh,
or
yeah.
not Ernie,
Oh,
or
right.
not Ernie Gerst, Ed White, sorry.
Ernie is all the way at the end.
Yes, Ernie's at the end, I'm sorry, I just
He's,
met with somebody down there, so sorry.
But anyways, that subdivision where it's got like 8 or 10 houses there, at what point is, the tax revenue from those off that tiny dirt road, you said you guys don't do any of that blading, at what point is that actually, cost effective for those kind of subdivisions?
Well, you're talking the Ed White one off of the gravel road, right?
Well,
Yeah.
that was a dirt road coming off the gravel there to that subdivision until, I don't know, I assume he probably turned that into gravel, but
Yeah,
you
that
guys-
was all-
You guys don't maintain
No.
that either? Okay.
No, I guess that's another point, we don't take over any subdivision roads. No matter what,
There's
pavement
not one
doesn't
that you
matter.
guys, there's not one.
No,
Only if it connects, if one of them might connect a gravel road to a gravel road.
we would have to, we would have to take it on as a county road. We've never ever, in longer than I've been here, taken over a subdivision road.
Because most of them are just confined
So-
within that subdivision.
So like situations like that, like who maintains that, like?
Into their building, they have
Into
a,
it's like
they have a homeowner association.
Okay.
Absolutely, and Ed White used to do it himself, but of course he passed away about a year ago. So now they're doing it internally, they create an association, they put money into it, and they take care of it,
Some
absolutely.
of those drives aren't up constructed the same as county.
Yeah, most of them
standards.
aren't,
Yeah.
but no, we don't take over them, because to be honest with you, you ask about when do you justify whatever, I mean, I could take all those houses, add their taxes up, and it wouldn't touch paving.
Really?
They wouldn't touch it. So that's, and that's that stance is one of the reasons that Des Moines County is in, I wanna say, as good a financial situation road-wise as we are. And I'm sure that we're losing ground. I think if you truly ever put pencil to paper, I'm sure that our bridges and roads and pavements and everything are getting older faster than we can replace them. I think that's a fact anywhere you go for transportation systems. But we don't willy-nilly take on other roads just because of situations. We don't.
And we don't borrow money to maintain roads. That bridge down there, but obviously first time, I think that's the
First time we bonded since
for-
I've been
for
here.
that Bridge, it's a large project for the county. And it's real important. I mean, there's only 2 highway connectors, as Brian will tell you, heading north out of Des Moines County. So that's being paid for out of debt service, as bond, that's not coming out of secondary roads budget.
But you guys normally,
We don't do that.
that was the first time, since you've been on?
Yeah, first time,
Oh,
maybe the
first time.
First time.
I think you probably
That
could
used
say
to be
first
a-
time
It's
ever.
good business.
That
huh?
used to
ever.
be a state highway too.
Yeah.
When did we get it?
Yeah, that was Highway 99 until 2000.
One of those gifts from the state.
For the DOT,
But we started talking about that
10
6,
years ago. Yeah,
9
8 to 10 years
something.
ago.
I've been here, this is my 11th year.
Yeah, it was right at the beginning of
Yeah, I
that.
remember when you drove us out there and started talking about that, so it would have been.
And that's
quite a
to do that
discussion.
size of a project and to get the funding lined up, that's how far in advance you do start talking about stuff. No, we don't go bond, and I'm a believer that you should you should do what you can afford and not dig the hole. That's just as best as I can, that's how I try to run things. I will say after that process has gone through and stuff, if you can go do a bridge project where your life is the length that we can get out of bridges, I think that can be justified. I think it's even hard to have that conversation about paving, to be honest with you, because I'm not sure even if you want to argue that brand new road, maybe you're gonna get 30 years of maintenance-free life relatively, we're talking. You're still gonna do shouldering and I'm not sure that I could even claim that as a true justification, but that's more of a board question than it is an engineer question. I'm just saying that we don't bond. I don't come ask for bonds. I have some bridge projects coming up, and when we're going through a construction program, we'll have some conversations because there are projects out there that we can't afford with our cash flow. And they're geared more towards bridges than anything.
But you're not borrowing any money
So-
for roads.
No, we don't. I mean, that's coming out of debt service and that's covering that, but that's the only time I know of in Des Moines County's history that we borrowed money to do a road project.
They were gonna
What's
judge
wrong
you
with
on
that,
lifespans, you could put up a road bridge if it was mine. But then you wouldn't have to borrow very much.
Yeah, but that is a good point. We don't, I feel bad for towns because they back themselves into a corner where they're seal coating alleys and they're doing stuff because of we owe it to them or we're quality of life stuff, but you can't afford that if you look at the big picture.
It's getting real hard
And
to.
It just,
people will ask you, can you seal coat it? And that's been a policy that was explained to me when I got here, and we looked at roads, we looked at stuff in the streets, and it doesn't pay, you can't afford it. And one thing, we never borrow to maintain roads. And I know there are counties that are, and that's a one-way ticket to.
as the engineer, I'm the stance that we know to seal coating. I mean, I don't think they did it before I was here either, but, it's not a long-term investment. It's a short-term, I don't like the dust and I wanna live on a paved road, so
But
that person right there.
Illinois and Missouri do it.
They do, and they're going backwards.
I
Some
know,
of-
that's what
some of those
that's
states
what
are-
everybody uses.
They
Well,
did.
over in Illinois,
When
all the
the
roads.
oil was pennies,
Yeah,
we're talking 50 years ago kind of thing, they did it a ton of it. And you go talk to them now and they're
The
tearing them
roads
up.
the roads are trashed, man.
Because they're narrow and the farm equipment can't get around and they struggle, they're rutted in the wintertime, they have ice down the ruts and, and here's the other thing, you go to southern Illinois and you go into Missouri and they don't have the same freeze-thaw cycle we have. You don't go very far before you don't have the same kind of winter we have. Yeah, they might get a big snow, but they don't have 3 foot of frost. And that, Lee County used to
Frost will
do.
expose you, man. It does.
Lee County did a little bit of seal coating for a few years. I mean, they used to do some actively seal coating. I don't believe they've done any as long as I can, it's been quite a while since I can remember any. And you wanna know what they ran into? If you go down a gravel road now, because most people that are thinking seal coating are just thinking coating it black with some pea gravel. You wanna do seal coating, whatever you're gonna call it properly, it's probably, I think my estimate's roughly 100,000 a mile, give or take.
Seal coat's 100,000 a mile?
If you do it what I'm calling properly, from an unpaved road forward.
Okay.
And you're gonna be back there about every 5 years to redo it, to make it something sustainable. Here's what they ran into in Lee County. First of all, nobody can afford to do it right. Secondly, you don't ever make it back in 5 years to keep that repetitive maintenance cycle going. And thirdly, everybody in the county needs their trash picked up. So if you go down a gravel road right now, 50% of the roads, you look at the shoulders and they'll be a dark brown because they're wet. Well, where does any male person pull over to and any trash truck pull over to pick up? And what they found was all those soft spots under the gravel road, everything just fell apart during a winter like this or during a year like this because it's just soft. It's still soft underneath.
Right.
And so all of a sudden you end up with this piece is okay, maybe it's okay, maybe it has fallen apart, but this out here is falling apart. And there's just no winning. And in the big picture, there really isn't. So we have been pushed. The board, it's a ton of credit to them. I have been the blockade on seal coat and they have been willing to stand behind me and support me on that. And, you know, we have had different roads get organized and come in and they want their road paved. We have this much tax base and we have this many people, almost like we've talked about, only not a dirt road, a gravel road. And there's a road down south of town that about every 3 to 4 years, the swell gets going again. And we've had work sessions and and nobody ever ends up happy with me because I'm the one that they see as standing in their way. I've gone out and met with groups of people in the evenings and about paving their road. And that was probably the closest it's ever gotten was that road, but it's still, you know.
We were gonna make it pay so much.
Yeah, well, we wouldn't do seal coat and we wouldn't do asphalt, we demanded concrete.
So they were gonna, anyway, so they're gonna pay so much. So they even came, they had a meeting here, and it broke down once they decided who should pay what. The guys with the smaller frontage thought it should be by the number of linear feet of frontage. The people with the bigger lots thought it should be, each lot pays the same. The people with the smaller lots thought that it should be property to, anyway, everybody had a way to do it to make it fair.
Because they were gonna pay.
Everybody put pencil to paper and said, this one will cost me the weeds.
Yeah.
I mean, and they were gonna pay, and the other dynamic on that road was at the front of that road, I don't think it's a mile long, but the beginning of that road is all the kind of the old school people that live there forever, the farmer that owns a house or whatever.
Part of it was farm ground.
Yes, the back end of the road is all doctors and lawyers, and it overlooks the river, and it's that rural, beautiful scenery they wanted. And so you had that dynamic where these people up front are saying, this was a dirt road when I moved out here and it's gravel and I'm fine with it, it's the way it is, and the people back there are saying, we pay these taxes, we want this paved, and in the end, they had, because the board was unwilling, and my stance was, if you guys wanna come up with a cost share, that's fine, but there's no way in the world that we should be paying 100% of this, and I think in the end, at the most we offered was 20% at one point, but it might have gone to 30%, I don't remember, but they had a hard time figuring out what they were willing to.
Of course, the farm field had the longest frontage, but they thought maybe he should pay the most.
Yeah, I mean, it was, yeah.
It
was a long, hot meeting, I will tell you that.
Well, then, and there was, and I don't remember, but then the county attorney at that time, how many people had to agree? In other words, you had a certain percentage, I don't remember, not of individuals, but of property owners or parcels, however it was, a certain percentage had to agree to that before, and I don't remember those numbers. I don't think
they ever got there, the board was never comfortable with what they, at best they were heading towards 50-50 and the board wasn't comfortable with that. So, I mean, so it has gone to that point on the gravel road, as far as talks about I mean, I've been approached by people on behalf of Randy Weingart about some improvements that they'd like to see and stuff like that, but same thing, we put together a cost estimate and we had a meeting with the board, and the board said at best we would, we'll have this conversation, but we're not paying for the full upgrade. And
He
But
wasn't
I
gonna
would
give
be-
better
I
deal
would-
than anybody else got.
I would be cool with a cost share, not 50-50, but I mean, I would be cool with if there was something going on, you know what I'm saying, the county maybe maybe helping out with, with a little bit of road work but I wouldn't be for anything like that, just for one, you know what I'm saying, this would have to be some type of development or
yeah,
something.
understood, and those are kind of case by case things. I mean, yes, when you went back to the dirt road, we do have a dirt road policy. And the dirt road policy does not get down to, if you do 50 lots, we'll be this nice, and if you do 1 lot, we'll be this mean, or anything like that. It's just it's a policy. So when you ask, what do you think about that? I don't get to think about that. I get to.
The policy thinks about it for me.
Well, I get to enforce a policy. And that policy was approved through 3 readings through a board of supervisors and is an ordinance, or a resolution, either way, it's a policy. So now somebody called me and said, I want to build 50 lots. And what do you do? And I said, well, here's our policy. And they say, I don't really like this. What I'll do is say, let's have a work session with the board of supervisors. I mean, let's have that conversation. I mean, we don't just run away from them, slam the door, and don't ever talk to them again. Doesn't mean they get their way, but there is that next step to talk to the board of supervisors.
Anybody's entitled to a work session if they want to discuss.
Absolutely. And I encourage people frequently to, let's do a work session. Let's talk about it. So.
Sitting here for
And
an
most
hour,
of them
15
that are
minutes talking about
asking
rock.
And most of them that are asking for concrete, they established that subdivision, they knew it was a gravel road,
Yeah.
and they built on there anyway, so.
There's a lot of, I've heard all sorts of justifications for, that people thought we should pave a road. I mean, when they give up on their own excuses, they start using other people as excuses. I mean, the people that own Barn on the Ridge, the Glendennings, have never once, to their credit, to Kevin and his wife's credit, have never once asked me about concrete, approached me about concrete. They've been great people out there. They've got a successful business. We still do the best job we could. And it's a gravel road. It's not always perfect, so it's got to be a frustration. But you'd be amazed on Irish Ridge, once that got built, how many people used their business as justification for us paving that road. It's just, you use whatever angle you can get. I mean, that's just the way it is.
That's the way it is.
We can't afford it anyway, so.
And once in a while, I think, and you probably ran into this in the city, and not necessarily roads, but typically something like that, but the world is full of people who will call up innocently enough and want some sort of a change or or policy or something like that, that just coincidentally harms, or not harms, but disadvantages their enemy down the road or across the road. So this would be really great if this happened to our road, or if you had this policy or that policy, and people are people, and there's a few of them.
Selfish motives.
I can smell it.
I can smell it.
But I'm not even talking about selfish. Some of them I've had a couple that are malicious. Have you
got some of that?
This, oh yeah, once in a while. They don't tell you that or something like that, but somebody that doesn't like Colin said, well, we live such and such a place. It'd be great if this happened, or if that happens, or something like that, or if you'd diverted the water and it all went onto Colin's lawn.
Yeah, but water is the one, water is the common one with what Tom's, in our day-to-day activities. It's weekly that we get calls from farmer A or landowner A that wants a project, and when you start digging into it, it's not helping anybody else. It's causing problems for somebody else, but it's benefiting them. You gotta dig into that and look at it, and they're not hard to spot anymore. But you do have to take it deeper than what's initially proposed. Sometimes it's dead on what's described. More times than not, there's more to the story.
I remember one bit was on private property. Farmer A had somehow, he had some standing water somewhere on his, so he dug a little canal or whatever, so ran it out on Farmer B's field and let the water stand there. Well, Farmer B's unhappy, and naturally enough, But it was all private property,
Yep.
and there much you do, so we just say, you need to call a lawyer, this isn't county
Civil.
property. Yeah, civil suit.
Yep, that's pretty frequent. Who do I call? Well, I'll call the county. So, but either way, does that give you a better feel? I mean, it's, there's no way in even 2 hours or however long we've been sitting here that I can do what experience will do for you. So.
This was really helpful, and this work session, it was really, really helpful for me.
Great. That's terrific. That means it was worthwhile. So, because it's certainly not an exciting subject. Our viewership's gotta be through the roof.
We got like 2 on here,
Really?
That's high.
I'd like to know what two.
Give them a shout out. A shout out to you folks.
2 people that hung with us.
Probably somebody forgot to turn their computer off and walk away.
They've been gone for 2 hours. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, BC.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Oh, Brian.
Thanks,
We
Paul.
adjourned, Tom.
Yeah, we're adjourned.
Okay.
Brian, I was gonna show you